Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to this week's segment of Live Without Limits. Today's show is titled How to Master Your Ego and Reach Your Full Potential. Why are we talking about this? Because who you are and the relationships you have in business determine how successful your business will be. And today, it's no longer going to work for a corporation and working your way up into management and retiring after 25 years. Sooner or later, you will do some type of business where you're the business owner and you need to build relationships. Impressing people is utterly different from being truly impressive, said Ryan Holiday. And ego is the enemy. Napoleon, Khan, Stalin, Hitler, Alexander the Great. History is littered with leaders who were driven by ego to gain power and who ultimately landed in ruin. History is also made by individuals who fought their egos at every turn, who eschewed the spotlight, and who put their higher goals above their desire for recognition. Reminds Ryan Holiday of his book, Ego is the Enemy. Make no mistake, your ego is one of your greatest mental enemies in life. It stops you from recognizing when you're wrong. It stops you from apologizing. Early in our careers, ego impedes learning and the cultivation of talent, says Holiday. With success, it can blind you to your faults and so future problems. In failure, it magnifies each blow and makes recovery more difficult. And I'm just going to kind of stop here. And I think in a lot of ways, for many people, your ego can be really fragile because there's two sides. It's that ego that pushes you ahead, that tells you you're very successful, and then it's those fears that hold you back. And they kind of work together at times, and they can, in essence, and especially in relationships, that's when your fears come up. That's when you say things out of anger because there's resentment there going on at the same time. But understanding how to help and make both of these sides work together is what makes you successful at any chosen field you're in. Holiday describes our ego as an unhealthy belief in our own importance, the need to be better than more than recognized. Any reasonable utility. Most of us aren't egomaniacs, but ego is there at the root of almost every conceivable problem and obstacle, he says. That's why settling aside your ego is liberating. It frees you from self-judgment and delivers the objectivity you seek and need to connect with in your course and make the right decisions for your life. Of course, setting aside your ego is difficult. That's why I created the ego exercise to help you separate your ego from the time the true you and put you on the path to success. Of course, you might not be able to get a mentor or coach that wants to do this for you, or you simply might not be ready for the brutal honesty about your weaknesses. That's fair. It's not easy to learn to lean into the difficult conversation. The good news is that after having done this exercise for hundreds of clients, I've discovered there are two universal strengths and two universal weaknesses in nearly every ambitious person. Below is somewhat generic follow-up of the ego exercise that acknowledges your strengths while pointing out your weaknesses and giving you suggestions on how to improve each of them. When you're done going through the exercise, don't harbor regrets or guilt about the weaknesses. Instead, celebrate your strengths and take action to improve. That's the secret to turning the pain of the ego exercise into improved personal performance. And here's another thing to think about. We all have all these behavior patterns within us. The issue is that which ones are the dominant ones and which ones are the weakest ones that fall below the midpoint. And why do we understand that? Because every one of us can be very controlling, and at the same time, we can be very outgoing. We can be very introverted. We can be the person who likes to question everything before we make a decision. You can also decide that if there is a manual to work with or a formula that makes something work, that you stick to the formula. When you're done going through the exercise, don't harbor regrets or guilt about your weaknesses. Instead, celebrate your strengths and take action to improve. Your strengths, your persistence. You never give up. The world has thrown everything at you: heartbreak, chaos, tragedy, career and business setbacks, and daily obstacles, but you're never giving up. Each day, you wake up and you take on the world. You often do it alone. And I'll address that in a moment, while often supporting others in their journeys too. The world will never extinguish the fight and fire within you. And people notice. You motivate others when you live this way. It's inspired me and everyone around you. Now, let's talk again. The first thing is your persistence. The second thing is your generosity. And think about how all these things work together. And in your generosity, Yanik Silver once told me, you cannot outgive the universe. Well, if anyone's tried, it's you. Your heart shines through the good times and in bad. You're always there for everyone. You have nurtured so many people and helped them grow. You've been there when their lives were falling apart, when their business and marriages were failing, and when they were ready to quit. You played a huge role in turning them around. No one has ever thanked you enough for all that you've done. You are the catalyst for change that so many of us needed in our lives. So let me be the first to thank you on behalf of everyone. Thank you for being generous with your time, your energy, your strength, and your love. The world is lucky to have you. I could spend hours talking about your strength, loyalty, commitment, honesty, and generosity. But now it's time to shift gears and look at how to overcome obstacles, never forgetting the strengths that will support you in the next phase of your journey. Okay, so we've been talking about your persistence and your generosity and how they work together, especially if you're in business. What is it that makes it all work together to help you grow and build your business to where you want it to be, not only now, but in the future? Why is all of this important? For one thing, persistence gets you where you want to be. Also, you need talent, and you need to be the top. You need to be unique. What makes you different from everyone else? And you know, people don't always think about generosity, but yet you will see that when they go to church and they pass around the plate, why do they do that? People will give because they've always been told in church that when you give, things come back to you tenfold. So always look at things of how you're going to help someone else be a better person, because not only does that help them be a better person, but it also helps you. Now, let's talk about your weaknesses. You forget about you. You'll do anything to take care of the people around you, but you forget to take care of you. That leaves you tired, unfulfilled, overworked, and with no time or energy to replenish yourself. This can only go on for so long before you crash. I understand you are physically and emotionally spent after taking care of everyone at home and trying to grow in your career at the same time. But you have to carve out time for yourself. As the old airplane safety cliche goes, adjust your own oxygen mask before helping others. And a good example of that is, how many times have you seen young mothers who have careers, but when they start a family or they have their first child, they stay home with the child, and along the way they almost, because a baby, you have to nurture a baby for it to grow, and a baby can be demanding on your time 24/7. So, and a woman has to learn how to manage her time, to give time to the baby, give time to the husband, give time to her career, also to give time to herself. Because, you know, if you don't take time for yourself to do what you really love to do, to just relax, then you're all that energy is going out, but nothing's coming back. And the best way to show that is the story of the fuzzy tail. And in that story, there's a family, and what do? They give out warm fuzzies like there's no end to it. And then eventually a witch comes along and tells them if they keep giving it away, it will eventually run out. So what do? They start hoarding it, and they give out false fuzzies and cold pricklies until the hip woman comes along and tells them it's okay to give out warm fuzzies. Because you know why? You got to take care of yourself just as much as you got to take care of someone else. You're hold back. People are out there crying themselves to sleep because they don't have your help. You know it. You've heard them, and you're still not being the leader that you can be for your team and your customers. You are handcuffing your personal and professional growth because you aren't willing to leave your comfort zone. I can understand that. Most people are scared of making the big leap. But this inability or indecision is creating a hard ceiling on their ability to reach your peak potential. Yes, you'll need to go through a short period of discomfort, but nothing worth having comes without some kind of fight. You need to build your leadership skills through deep, uncomfortable conversations. This will build you and everyone around you, every area of your life. You will always have people wanting to take every bit of your energy and your time. Those are the takers in life. They don't give, but they literally take. And there has to be a balance. And you want to be with people who want to give you back as much as you're giving away of yourself. And there has to be a balance. You're being a pushover. You've done so much great work in your industry. People owe you, yet you're afraid to ask what you're worth. This is holding you back from enjoying the wealth and personal growth that you deserve. When you allow yourself to be treated as a pushover at work and at home, you do not get what you're worth. Look at those who motivate and inspire you. They aren't afraid to command their value. You must follow their lead. This requires you to step up, act with greater confidence, set boundaries on meetings, and stop doing free work for friends. Demand more of yourself, and everyone around you will treat you with greater respect. It all starts with you. While you might find it hard to believe right now, there's a person out there who would love to have a rock like you in their life. They dream about waking up with someone like you who puts a smile on their face. They wish for the intelligent person like you to talk to. They need a wise partner to become the best version of themselves. Be that person. Here's how to meet that person that needs you. Go to places that you like to go by yourself or with friends and just have fun. Set your ego aside and ask your friends to set you up with wonderful people. Attend meetup groups on topics that interest you. Get out of the house. Go to the gym during busy times. Go to the group hikes. Go skiing and hang out in the lodge. Go to events. Speak at events in your industry. Ask someone out for brunch and for tea. These dates are not as serious as dinner. There are great people out there waiting for you. You know how to, I know, if you can speak at events, coach others to become their best selves, and build a business, then you can go on dates. More than that, you can find the right partner. Stop stalling. At the very least, even if your first few dates don't work out, you're at least be out there and having some fun. Yes, fun. You know that thing you used to have back in the day? Well, you can have it again. Now, two, you might have read the old cliche that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Well, I say life begins when you set your ego aside. A better life awaits you. Set your ego aside and go for it. And let's look at it this way. We all need someone to share our lives with. But who you are when you're in your 20s, who you are in your 30s, who you are in your 40s, and then who you are later in life really changes. You can't, in essence, understand that where you are today and where you were in the past. I mean, look at soap operas. What do? They focus on the 20-year-olds. Why? Because soap operas are all about relationships and all about the push and pull of relationships. And a man in his 20s, all he thinks about is getting a woman in bed, generally. It's like when they say men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And basically, men don't think about procreating until they hit their 30s and they start thinking about the family. And especially when you have a career woman, what happens? They are so busy with their careers at that point in their life that they don't want the child because they don't want to lose the momentum they've gotten. So what happens to the relationship? It breaks apart. And what we don't realize is two people can truly love each other and care for one another, but when you live together 24/7, because your personalities can be strong egos, they clash. And when they clash, you argue, you say things that you really don't need. And then when one and the other starts taking on more responsibility in their career and the ego comes into play and there's jealousy, what happens? It causes problems in the relationship. And then too, especially when one person's career or business takes off, the other one tends to build up some jealousy along the way and pettiness along the way, and it creates more problems. The difference is, okay, in your 20s, it's all about sex. When you're in your 30s, and even a woman, that's when they start thinking about the family, wanting the marriage. But by the time they hit their 40s, you know, if they don't already have the children and the families, they start taking on more of getting themselves in their career where they totally want to be recognized. And that's when they want to get into management or into a higher up plane within the company, or if they're the business owner, they want to take that business to the next level, because it's all about what kind of legacy you're going to be leaving in the next few years. Then by the time you start hitting your late 50s and your 60s, it goes back to wanting that relationship again. Why? Because the children are grown. Either your career is where it is, and it's either you're at the top of the game, but you begin to realize there's life after work, and it's who you're going to share your life with, your goals with, and how it's all going to play out and work together. And that's when you tend to either want to rehook up with the person that you were with before, or you go back to the past. But generally, you know, it's all about the different things. And what I want to do is I want to talk about Harry Chapin's song, Time in a Bottle. And why is time in a bottle important? Because what does he talk about? He talks about the son who wants to spend time with the father, and the father's not there. Then when the father has the time to spend with the son's not there because he's busy with his family. And it goes on and on like that, because you can see how history repeats itself. So a parent needs to be aware of how the things that they're doing now influences the relationship they have with their child at this point in their lives, but not just at this point, but in the future. And it also affects who you are. And we've been talking about your ego. And, you need to have a healthy ego, but you also need to be able to keep that ego in check. Why? Because you need to realize that in any relationship, whether it's personal or it's business, it's all about how you're going to leave that legacy in the future, whether it's with your children, whether it's a legacy in business, however you look at it. But life is always changing. And who you are when you were a child, who you are when you're an adult, in your 40s, in your 50s, you're totally in a different place than where you were. Not just your life experiences, because how many times have you heard or seen someone write something that said, if I knew now, or if I knew then what I know now? And why is that important? Because experience teaches us what life is about and how to make good choices as opposed to bad choices. And ego can get you where you want to be, but it can also affect you in holding you back, in how you see the world, in how the world sees you. And it's interesting when you go back and you can watch today because of digital. If you take video of yourself when you're your 20-year-old self, keep a video diary of yourself where you look at and talk about where you are when you're in your 20s, when you look at and talk about where you are in your 30s, and so on, in different generations. Then go back and look at yourself 40, 50 years later and see where you were, and you can see how life and experience has changed who you are today and who you were in the past, and what it is that you want now as opposed to what it was that you had in the past. We all need to reflect on where we're coming from and realize just how what we do today affects the relationships we have in the future, and not just the relationships we have in the future, but the kind of relationships that you will have with your children down the road, and the relationship that you would want to have. And let me remind you that you can go to my website, and that website is the #1 personalcareercoach.com. And what we can do is we can help you take and put together a plan of where your business is today and where you want to go, and also how to build relationships to get you to what it is that you want, what you would like to have in the future.